the title? Are we talking to Nathan?
You can give a message.
Oh, Nathan.
Hey Nathan.
You
this
mean
is-
Nathan? Hey, what's up? So we're learning about the Congress of Vienna. You're not here.
Yeah.
So you know what? This is like unto Cruz making the FIFA Team of the Year. So that's how I feel about those. Or David Luiz. Hey, that was also
Andrew Grounded.
also,
Andrew Grounded.
people are saying
Oh,
like
also it's Angela's birthday, so that's a big mistake on your part.
Oh, yeah,
How
Mrs.
is that
Brown's pregnant.
pregnant? Oh my goodness.
Okay,
Ah.
so yeah, I want you to come back here and dispel all the rumors that I hate you. Okay?
Yeah, also come back.
Make sure to wish Angela a happy birthday. Bye.
Be true to your school.
All right, and now he can listen to it forever on the lecture because it was recorded.
It
It's
would've
like
been funny
happy.
if you walked in.
I know. He's like, "What's up?" Yeah.
And Homer has no
Oh.
It would be the first
Okay.
page.
Yep. So the first page, but we're actually going to pick up with page 3. But I'm going to explain that, and this is like weirdly echoing. I feel like I'm gonna turn. Yeah, I don't want to sound like a. Let's preach it to ya. Okay, so I'm gonna turn the volume down on the smartboard, and we're gonna. There we go. So. The first page really here, I like to give you a little synopsis, kind of like Merriman does. He always gives you a synopsis at the beginning of the chapter of what's going to happen. This is my synopsis. I put a little chart in. French Revolution and Napoleon is where we left off politically, so that little white column to the left. We are in the gray column now, and then we will continue moving forward. So this unit's about the age of Metternich. You need to, if this is like a mini study guide, you need to understand every aspect in this gray column to do well on this unit, so you want to make sure that you have all of that down. This time period is also known as the long 19th century, and it is going to feel long, guys. We're going to slow down here. We're going to build a good foundation, and I didn't title it that. It is the long 19th century, so it's going to take us some time here. We're going to see ideologies, which are beliefs here, and also revolutions again. And you will see some repeats here because we're going to recap where we left off politically first semester. I don't know about you, but that feels like forever ago to me. January already feels like it's taking forever. So, the overview portion here, you can just kind of circle. This is an overview of the entire unit. So we're going to come back to it to sum up this unit when we're done. So we're just going to kind of skip past. And we're going to go straight to the Congress of Vienna on page 3. So if you want to turn to page 3 in your note packet. The Congress of Vienna takes place, if you remember, we've talked about this. We talked about it at the end of Napoleon's reign. It took place September 1814 to June 1815. Much of this will feel like a repeat, but please ask me if you don't remember anything or something sounds brand new. So representatives of our major powers of Europe, including France, but I want you to put a little note here, including France later. Why wouldn't France have been invited right off the bat? Yeah, they were the troublemakers. They're like the bad kids. So they're not going to be invited right off the bat. As we start to build some trust back, they'll be invited later. So it's going to be our major powers of Europe are going to meet and redraw the territorial lines of Europe. I like to call this like the nursery rhyme Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty fell off a wall. You know, all the king's horses, all the king's men, try to put them back together again. That's really what the powers of Europe are trying to do, is to reconstruct Europe to prevent another war. We'll talk about at the end of the Congress of Vienna review whether this was successful or not. There are historians that would go either way. I would have to say yes, considering the treaty that ends World War I results in World War II 20 years later. I would consider the Congress of Vienna pretty successful, but yes. No, remember we have the Bourbon heir coming back in. Yeah. Yep. So he's fat. He's got gout. He's pretty like, I'm gonna do whatever. We'll come back to him. But yeah, so we've replaced that as part of, and I'm glad you bring this up. One of the terms of the Congress of Vienna is legitimacy. So we're going to return all the legitimate heirs. So that's a good segue here. So our big four are powers at the Congress of Vienna. I don't know why I always go for the acronym RAPE first here. There are many other ways that you could put R, A, P, and E together. For some reason, my head goes there. if you would like to be more PC, you could put pair, P-E-A-R, or pair, P-A-R-E, or even reap, R-E-A-P. I don't know why. I always remember the big four as rape. So that is going to be, of course, Russia, Austria, Prussia, and England are our big four. So that's how you can remember them. Maybe pick a better PC term. But when I unscramble the letters, it goes there for me. So, all right. So yeah. Okay. There you go. Maybe that's why. See, we're all here together. So the Congress of Vienna, there's our big four. The head of these big four is going to be Clemens von Metternich, and he represents Austria. So you need to know his name. What's this age called that we're in? On your gray chart. So look back at the beginning. The age of Metternich, which is an age of conservatism ushered in by him. So you need to know him. He's very important. Here he is. Clemens von Metternich. Yeah, his hair is just fantastic. So he's our most influential individual. He's the foreign minister of Austria. He epitomizes conservatism. Like, if you want to know about a guy who doesn't like change, it is Metternich. He opposed the ideas of liberals and reformers because of the impact those forces would have on the Habsburg Empire. He's very afraid of revolution. Like, the thought of the people involved in the French Revolution would probably send him into convulsions. He does not like change or revolutions. He says the word freedom means for me not a point of departure, but a genuine point of arrival. The point of departure is defined by the word order. Freedom cannot exist without the concept of order. So he's very much into monarchies and order and people knowing their place and being very controlled. And we'll see that as we move along. England is going to be represented by Lord Castlereagh, and he is going to be our representative there for England. He is there and interested in a balance of power. Britain's always been interested in a balance of power with France. That's not going to change. They just want it even more now. So England wants to contain France for all of their trouble that they've just caused. And they want to surround France with stronger powers. They want to, like, kind of like encircle them. Like you think about when you have all of your wagons in the Oregon Trail and you want to, like, circle up. That's what they want to do to France. Prussia's there to seek to recover the Prussian territory that Napoleon took. That's really the reason why they've showed up to these. And Tsar Alexander I of Russia is going to represent Russia and demand, I want you to think air quotes, demand a free and independent Poland. Poland ceased to exist under Napoleon. When he says free and independent, he means let's recreate Poland and I want to be its king. So real free and real independent, huh? But that's what he wants. France, like I said, will later get to show up after everyone's done with their little temper tantrum, and they'll be represented by Talleyrand, the French foreign minister. I'd like you to remember at this time that it's called the Dancing Congress. Only the big four have anything to do, so all of the other powers that are there just having balls, getting drunk, dancing, doing all kinds of things, so only the big four are doing anything. Metternich, and we're going to talk about his personality some more in a little bit. He had risen up the ladder through marriage, and he is very, some people would call him confident, some people would call him arrogant. He had a supreme confidence in his own ability, but he also believed that most other people were extremely dumb. And so he had contempt for the average Englishman's inability to speak French fluently. And he is actually going to look at the John Dudley, who comes to these and is a foreign secretary, for his excellent French. And so he says this in front of a room full of people. Just want to give you a little glimpse into Metternich here. The common people of Vienna speak French better than the educated men of London. And so he says this, and so Dudley says back, and I have respect for Dudley, which is why I pull this up. This may be so, but your highness will recall that Bonaparte has not been twice in London to teach them. So, it's a yeah. So he kind of puts, I like anyone that can check Metternich. He's a kind of an arrogant little sasser brass. There. Okay, so Metternich has 3 goals at the Congress of Vienna. We've talked about these. His 3 goals are legitimacy, compensation, and balance of power. Just a reminder, legitimacy meant returning the power of the ruling families, the original ruling families, to their thrones, the ones that Napoleon had usurped and put his own family in control of. The Bourbons are restored in France, Spain, and Naples. So we have Louis Philippe, that was the grandson, going to come back to Spain. We are going to see the brother of Louis the XVI come to the throne. And then we're going to see the dynasties restored in Holland, Sardinia, Tuscany, and Modena. The papal states will be returned to the Pope. Glory day. And they're going to try to preserve all the old ways. So if you think about Metternich, just think like old-timer. Like, I always hear stuff like, back in my day, like, he wants everything to stay the same, be what it was like in 1789 before the French Revolution. Compensation meant territory was given to those who had stood up against Napoleon. They're going to be rewarded. So it's kind of like that to the victor goes the spoils kind of mentality. We'll see that here. England is going to receive naval bases in Malta, Ceylon, and the Cape of Hope, or today's Sri Lanka, Ceylon. Austria is going to recover the Italian province of Lombardy. We've talked about all of these a little bit, and awarded adjacent Venetia as well as Galicia and the Illyrian provinces along the Adriatic. Russia will be given most of Poland, with Tsar as the king, okay, as well as Finland and Bessarabia. What I want you to know goes off to the side here, so write a little note to the side in the note column, is Metternich and Castlebrugh, so the Austrian and British representatives, are not happy with Russia being given Poland and making the Russian Tsar king of Poland. So they sign a secret treaty behind the scenes with France. So France isn't even really there yet. They're like, we're not so sure about giving Russia Poland. So they signed a secret treaty with France against the Prussians and Russians. This, and put this in big letters, I don't care if you highlight it or circle it or what you do, this sets the precedent of secret treaties that is going to cause us all kinds of crap storms and going out to World War I. Before this time, you didn't make agreements like this behind the scenes. Everything was open. This treaty is open. This is going to start some like backward things where nobody knows who's going to go to war for whom if something goes bad. Okay, so we're going to see this again in World War I. Yeah, Castlebrugh, Britain and France, or Britain and Austria, Metternich and Castlereagh are going to make a secret treaty against Russia and Prussia. So our second one here, balance of power, is going to be arranging the map of Europe so that never again could one state upset the balance. So Metternich's famous quote here, when Paris sneezes, Europe catches a cold. So like, we gotta do something about France. They're causing too many problems. He's thinking back even to the Louis XIV days. Like, he sees France as a chronic problem, not just a Napoleon problem, but a chronic problem so that it needs to be shut down. So they're going to start to hedge, like build a hedge around France. To the north, they are going to unite the Netherlands. Remember, we've had the Netherlands disunited for some time with Spain and all of the revolts there, so they're going to unite them. They're going to give Prussia the Rhenish lands bordering on the eastern French frontier. And then to the east, this is something that's going to play a part in World War I, World War II as well, Switzerland will receive a guarantee, bless you, of perpetual neutrality. So be given a guarantee by strong world powers for perpetual neutrality, meaning that all world powers promise to step up if anyone invades Switzerland to deter France from doing so. It's not intended for the actual nation that will do so, but that is not a nation yet. That's going to happen here too. So, right underneath that, they are also going to end, the Habsburg Holy Roman Empire is going to end, they don't, but it ends. And it's going to enhance Austrian influence over the German states, creating the German Confederation of the Bund of 39 states out of the original 300. So they're going to keep this from Napoleon. This is just another step towards the unification of Germany. So we're seeing some problems rise up here. Austrian is going to be put at the head. I want you to write out to the side, this is a big problem. This is going to cause problems. Whether Austria or Prussia is in control of Germany is going to cause some problems. So write out foreshadowing to the side, because that's going to happen. The Bund is still a loose confederation where members remain sovereign. It's still not Germany, but it's a big step towards becoming Germany. We'll also see Sardinia and Piedmont had its former territory restored with the addition of Genoa. So this is to the southeast in the Mediterranean. And then we'll see a compromise on Poland is reached, and the Congress of Poland is created with Alexander I of Russia as the king. We've already talked about that and the secret treaty, so don't have to do much there. And then you need to, yes?
So, looking at the treaty like everyone's switching on there,
Mhm.
but other than like Poland yeah, and like Russia being mad about that, I'm gonna have to know like history about this and
No, no. What I want you to get out of this, that's a great question. What I want you to get out of this, and why I only put this up on the slide, is why they're doing it. What the 3 goals of Metternich are, why we're doing it. What you really need to know is we're hedging France in. You need to know that Poland's going to cause some problems because of the secret treaty behind the scenes. You need to know that Austria and Prussia are going to come to blows about Germany. You need to know the next thing I'm getting ready to tell you about Britain remaining the only power not on the continent. And so it's not going to be checked by anybody. And that is going to lead to 100 years of supremacy from 1814 to 1914. And so you need to know that. Very good question. So, evaluation of the Congress of Vienna. I think I put this slide in there. Oh, dang. Yeah, put an extra slide. Here you go. I typed it for you too, so I don't feel so bad. So the containment of France, here's everything I just said, balance of power, legitimacy. Louis XVIII is our example of a monarch coming back to the throne. Sadie set us up for that one, so we were expecting that. Okay. Sorry. I knew I added it in. Alright, so here's our map. So there's the German Confederation, the Bund. And then we have all of our different areas, okay, that are going to be coming into play here in this time period. So kind of setting us up map pre-World War I. We still have some work to do. Let's see. Oh yeah, so here's just a funny political cartoon about the balance of power and the creation of Belgium in 1830 to establish a buffer between France and Germany by the Congress of Vienna. And so, just as kind of funny here, the 2 countries are characterized as dogs on the same leash. And so this is kind of what we're seeing in this time period. Not everything that these powers do is in the best interest or what these nations wanted. And so we're going to start to see some problems bubbling up. Okay, so here's my evaluation of the Congress of Vienna. I think the Congress of Vienna is a triumph. I think it shows for one of the only times and first time all of the big powers in Europe cooperating together to control political affairs. We're going to see that they're even going to agree to meet and continue to meet to work things out. It successfully restored European balance of power. We are going to see a check of anyone getting too strong, at least right now. Not until Germany's unification in 1871 will we see any kind of disturbance crop up. So that's pretty significant. There will be no world wars. So we're going to have little fights, little revolutions, but there will be no continental wars until 1914 with World War I. So 100 years, really, of non-continental warfare. I think it's a significant accomplishment. I'd consider it a triumph. The Congress system that's going to be set up by this will be successful for most of the 19th century. I can't think of another peace treaty that lasted this long and was this successful. It was fair. It didn't sow the seeds of other wars. Most treaties, like when we talked about the Treaty of Versailles, we knew another war was going to happen. When we talked about it, it'll be so unsuccessful. So I don't know. I think successful. Some historians would disagree with me and say that it was exactly why World War I happened. I don't know. 100 years, it'd take 100 years for, I don't know. So you can disagree with me. More successful in stabilizing the international system than treaties in the 20th century. I want to bring up, and if you want to put a side note here, some evidence I'm using to support that opinion is the fact that the treaty that ends World War I will only last for 4 years before we have World War II. So, I don't know. I think it's a good thing. More successful in keeping peace. It did, however, do more for keeping peace than it did successfully keep conservatism alive. The Congress of Vienna was so old-minded that it underestimated liberalism and nationalism, which we're going to see as some of the main causes of World War I when it does come up. So they underestimated the new nationalism generated by the French Revolution. So I would say that where the failure in the Congress of Vienna was its underestimation of being able to control liberalism or nationalism. But it did a good job of keeping peace. So you disagree with me all you want, but that's my summary. So what you really need to get from this is circle 1871. Germany is going to be what messes all of this up. It messes up the balance of power when it unifies. Okay? So what the Congress of Vienna does, and it creates a concert of Europe. If you think about what a concert is, it's everyone playing together in harmony. And so it sets up this ability to be able for everyone to work together towards the same purpose. All of us working together and working in concert. So this time period is also sometimes called the Concert of Europe. It sets it up. There's a series of arrangements set up by the Congress of Vienna that these powers will continue to meet throughout the years to enforce the status quo. To enforce that everything stays the same. We don't want anything to change. Let's leave it all just like this. So that's their goal, to be conservative. Highly conservative in nature, write in big capital letters, no change. The enemy of conservatism is change. They want absolutely nothing to change. Everything is happy the way it is. They will crusade against liberalism and nationalism because those are the biggest challenges that they face. Those are the biggest challenges to not changing. They will do anything to stop them. Liberalism is like those ideals that came out of the Enlightenment and the French Revolution, and nationalism is asking for freedom and self-rule. They definitely wouldn't want any of those things because it contradicts with conservatism. So two major provisions come out of the Congress system. That is going to be the Quadruple Alliance and the Congress system. So the age of concert, you need to know also, is also known as this age of Metternich, but I've already put that there. Kind of threw it in my slide late. So, two major provisions that come out of this time period are the Quadruple Alliance. That's our big four again. Rape, reap, pair, whichever one you want to use. It's our big four. They become known as the Quadruple Alliance. They are going to provide for concerted action against any threat to peace. So they're like this task force that is going to come together to do anything to prevent conservatism from falling to the wayside. That means that they're going to put, I don't know, I can't get this out of my mind, but there was a funny little parody done. You know those whack-a-mole games, like where the thing pops up? That's like what I think of the, that's what I think of the Quadruple Alliance, is like they're whack-a-mole, like liberalism and nationalism pop up and they're like boop, 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 like that's what they do. Any little thing and they just beat it down. So that's really all you need to know about that. The Congress system is European international relations at this time, controlled by series of meetings. So they meet every few years. They get together to just say, hey, is everything how we set it up to stay? Which is one of the reasons it's able to maintain for 100 years. Okay. It worked effectively into the early 1820s. Our big power, Britain, is going to withdraw in 1822. That's going to really weaken our Congress system. You need to circle that. I've underlined it for you. I know, right? They get into a disagreement over the putting down of a revolution in Spain is why. They fundamentally disagree with it and they pull out of the Congress system. We will see that not long after that, Germany is allowed to unite. Okay, so Britain pulls out. You know, I don't know. It probably hurt them more in the long run than it will many of the other countries involved, but I mean, that's for debate as well. Yes? The revolution in Spain was different. The revolt in Spain was against not as much liberalism or nationalism, but the human rights, really. And so they disagree with the Congress stepping in. Because it's not on the terms that they put. They didn't feel that it was an attack on conservatism. Yeah, they kind of crossed the line is what, and we'll talk about it more when we get to the revolutions in this unit. But no, not really, because we're going to talk about that. Not during this time period, because they're like a teapot. Britain seems to let the steam off slowly instead of letting it, like French would be like the opposite of a teapot. Like they just boom. Like the British like give little things along the way. Like, oh, you're unhappy, like let's let this many more people vote. Or let's take this away. There will be, and we're getting ready to talk about some, I don't want to call it a revolution. Protests. More like protests in Britain. Yes, ma'am.
What about in Ireland? I don't know what the revolution is up there, but in that case, it's just like, no.
Yeah, but no. But you have to remember with the unification we talked about in the last unit, there has now been some choice to stay. Now we know like that has changed since then, but economically there was some decision to stay. So we're still battling more for religion than we are. It was more just disputes between Protestants and Catholics. Yeah, continued at that point, but not as much politically right now. We'll see a little. Right now, the Irish potato famine is kind of, yeah, they're a little busy. They're immigrating too, so we're seeing a lot of leaving. Yeah. Let's see. So I told you about Britain withdrawing. And now I have a really weird part. Like, sometimes I don't even like to talk about this with students, but it comes up and it's going to make no sense to you and Merriman if I don't talk about it. It's this addition to the Congress system. It's called the Holy Alliance. So Alexander the First kind of has asked for one thing, right? Poland, and to be the king. He proposes that they not only battle liberalism with politics and power, but with religion as well. And he sees liberals as an attack on religion. He's very religious. He says the liberals, they're like the Enlightenment people, they're deists. He sees it as an attack. He's like, we need to form this holy alliance. And he asks them all to join, but it will only be Russia, Prussia, and Austria. Britain's pretty much like, what the frick, man? Like, this is some crazy stuff. Like, we're out. They don't even sign on board. Like, I'm pretty little cool. Like, Castlerod doesn't even take the journey to hear him out. Pretty sure he sent, like, an informal letter, if I remember correctly. But it's the first attempt to stop the growth of liberalism through religion. It's proposed for all monarchs to sign a statement agreeing to uphold Christian principles of charity and peace, which means, like, let's use the name of God to put down and kill anybody who is liberal. Yeah. The plan proved to be overly ideological and impractical, and few took it seriously, especially Britain. They're like, what? You Eastern people, stay over there. Liberals saw it as an unholy alliance. It's actually going to do the opposite effect. It's going to anger liberals. They're like, well, you can't bring, because, deists believe in God. They just not in the viewpoint that these Orthodox individuals would have wanted. It's taken more seriously by the monarchs in Eastern Europe as they squashed attempts at nationalism in that region. That's really all you need to know about this. It's just a weird kind of sub-note. Castlebrugh, the English representative, he said, it's sublime mysticism and nonsense. That's what his letter said. I knew I wrote that down somewhere, which I think is a perfect summary of it. So, that's what mentioned that. So, let's get into our first ism. Conservatism will be the only ism we cover today, so we're almost done. We're at 28 minutes right now. I'm planning to stop about 35, 40. So let's talk about what conservatism is. You have heard this word. We've talked about it. It is the status quo. It is staying the same. But not just staying the same. It is like what was pre-1789. Okay, so that's what our status quo is. It was a reaction to liberalism and a popular alternative for those frightened by the violence, terror, and social disorder of the French Revolution. It's kind of reactionary to the French Revolution. And so we're going to talk about the ideology of conservatism, liberalism, and nationalism, and then we're going to talk about the revolutions that end up happening anyway because of these. It's embodied by Clemens von Metternich of Austria. Like I said, he could climb the social ladder through marriage. He does not want to come down. He now thinks he is better. I don't know. I don't like Metternich. I think that's personal bias. I think that he had lots of reasons to be super confident, and maybe I take it more as arrogance. And I tend to see people like that in general, like that are out there and like they never are like humble at all. But like I've got this. Like nothing is like I'm not. I don't know. Very arrogant. He wants to stay at the top. He doesn't seek counsel from anyone. He thinks everyone pretty much but himself are the dumb masses. So he just I don't know. So there's some stuff about him. His viewpoints are going to be supported by the traditional ruling classes, of course, because they want to be back to the throne. But you want to circle peasants here. It's kind of odd, and a lot of students are like, I don't understand why peasants wouldn't they be more in support of revolutionaries than those who want to return to the status quo? And the reason that peasants support this is because of the religious piece. Liberals, they feel, are challenging their religion. And peasants at this time period tended to be more religious than middle class or upper class. And so they stick with the conservatives because they want their church protected. It's as simple as that if you got it on a multiple choice question. Okay. Our biggest challenge to conservatism then, not hard to figure out, is the middle class, the bourgeoisie. So you need to know they're the biggest threat. Conservatives believe in order, society, the state, faith, and tradition. A little side note about Metternich, he had actually gotten some of his power. He kind of befriended Napoleon, actually, during the Napoleonic era. He's the one that hooked Napoleon up with his Austrian wife, Louise. So that he arranged the marriage, which, because, Napoleon was beating up Austria pretty bad. And, I don't know, historical side note, we didn't talk about it, but he slows down in Austria for some time. And this is why. But then Metternich is going to actually become less pro-Napoleon as time goes on, and so come to that realization and really want to shut down France afterwards. But little side note in history there. And Metternich also believed the perfect state would be a monarchy, an aristocracy, and respectful commoners. That's the perfect government. Aristocracy, a monarchy, and respectful commoners. By respectful, he means obedient. He hates liberals. I think I said that. I don't think I'm missing anything. And then we're going to come back to Mr. Burke here, who is on the right-hand side of the screen. We talked about Edmund Burke in the French Revolution. He wrote that paper, Reflections on the Revolution of France. Remember, he has a lot of credibility because he pretty much predicted what was going to happen in the revolution, that there would be mass murdering, chaos. And so he's going to give us one of the greatest intellectual defenses of European conservatism. He says that you need to do things slowly, that you should have evolution rather than revolution. He is a big supporter of Britain, England. So I always remember England, evolution. And that goes back to your question. Was it Sadie or was it Laura? About England. England does things slowly. They're like a tea kettle. They let steam off slowly. And so he really says that to get things done, you have to go slowly. And so it's best to go back to conservatism and give little things along the way. Metternich will be particularly concerned about the multi-ethnic character of the Habsburg Empire. He sees the multi-ethnicity in nationalism as his biggest threat, besides the liberals. And then repression by conservatives is going to result in the period between 1815 and 1849. So circle number 4 on page number 6. Repression is the conservatives' number one weapon. Keeping people under their thumb, letting people have no say, censorship, murder, all kinds of fun stuff. Whack-a-mole. I always think of that. Whack-a-mole. I just see Metternich. I should draw a political cartoon. Like, whack-a-mole, whack-a-mole, whack-a-mole. So, Austrian-German Confederation. The multi-ethnic, like I said, composition of the Habsburg Empire is what really worries Metternich. It meant liberalism and nationalism were potentially more dangerous than in other countries, because all of these people are going to say, I want to rule myself. Why should I have this Russian guy, French guy, British guy ruling over me? I should have someone of my own ethnicity ruling over me. So liberalism and nationalism were often centered in universities for the first half of the 19th century. So one of our first conservative acts is going to be the Carlsbad Diet. So it's like the Diet of Worms. It's a meeting. In 1819, it's a reaction to liberalism and nationalism in Austria and German Confederation. This is led by Metternich. The Carlsbad decrees come out of this, and this pretty much shuts down universities. Where were people getting their liberal and nationalistic ideas? In a college classroom. Okay? They shut this down. Professors are fired or kind of go missing. So, it is scripted coursework. So we start to see a lot of censorship here. This drives liberalism and nationalism underground. We're going to see a lot of underground organizations form at this time. So that's kind of some fun stuff. The we've already talked about the German Confederation, so let's move on to Prussia. Prussia is still ruled by the Hohenzollerns. They're a very aggressive royal family, if you remember. Who was our group? Was that Matt, your group? Yeah. Very aggressive family. Briefly, after 1815, German liberals had seen Prussia as a leader of German liberalism. They had made reforms that seemed liberal, but they were really only designed to improve efficiency of government rather than promote liberalism. So they're still conservative. Don't let anyone tell you Prussia was liberal at this time. Liberal in some politics, government, to make government stronger, still conservative. Prussian government and its traditional ruling classes, the Junkers, followed Metternich's lead in repressing liberal and nationalistic movements. So that's really what you need to know here. Then Britain. When Napoleon's defeated the Tories that are in power in Britain, yeah, they become very popular. Like, I put a little heart right here to remind you, like, they are like, Britain hearts the Tories because they beat Napoleon. So they have the favor. They have all of the power. They are going to pass those corn laws we've already talked about in the Agricultural Revolution, which is a tariff on on corn supplies. What you need to remember about that, that's really great if you're a wealthy landowner, right? Like, ooh, they can only buy British corn, and it's going to be more expensive, and if they were buying cheaper stuff from outside, they can't anymore. Who's it really bad for? Yeah, anyone who has to buy food that can't produce it themselves. So we see the benefit of wealthy landowners in Britain. Liberals were outraged but lacked necessary political influence to repeal the law. So they're going to do what they can because England's like a teapot and it lets steam off slow. They have the right at this time to protest. And so what they're going to do is begin to protest. And this is called the Peterloo Massacre of 1819. So you can already tell how well this protest worked out. I mean, like, successful, right? It's a reaction to the Corn Laws. A pro-liberal crowd is gathered to hear about trying to repeal the Corn Laws, and they will be attacked by the police. 11 people will be killed, 400 will be wounded, including 100 women. Habeas corpus is repealed at this time. Think about how long habeas corpus is. It's in the beginning of our class. That's the right to trial. So none of these people have the right to trial that are arrested at this time. England will also pass the 6 Acts. They're going to censor the press. They're going to not allow mass meetings. And one of the things that is kind of unique of this situation is not only were there liberals there, these signs, if you can't read them very well, some of them promote universal suffrage, and this is going to continue a movement in Britain for universal suffrage. So they're going to become like a teapot again. They're going to grant the right to vote to more people, which allows more people to have a say in the government. Okay? By 1820, England seemed to be moving towards becoming a repressive authoritarian state for a time. We'll pick back up and we're going to talk about how that changes. Yes, sir.
Why are they putting trips on corn? Wheat's more important than better.
Corn, wheat, any agricultural product. They just call them the Corn Laws. Yeah. Anything that agriculturally can be grown in Britain. And then we're at the time limit that I wanted to be at, so let's stop and let's lump France and Russia together with some of the little revolts that they're going to have with our liberalism discussion next time, because I've had you sit long enough. Does anyone have any questions before I talk about the essential questions we covered today? Anything not making sense? You can put to the side here. I know they're in the conservative category, but all of these groups we're talking about in relevance to conservatism right now. So you would consider them all conservative in this period. Don't forget the study chart. So if you want to flip to the back of your packet, if you look at page 28, conservatism, the definition is recapped for you there very simply, and you were given the time period. I've broken it into 1815 to 1830, 1830 to 1848, and 1848 to 1871, and then 1871 up to World War I. So we just covered 1815 to 1830, so it has a recap of the important things you must know for each nation here. So I know that I've typed a lot for you, but when it comes down to studying, all you need to know is the things really in the chart. Make sure you have a fundamental understanding of what's happening in each country in this little time period. Does that make sense? There. So it's very abbreviated. So it's the same for each ism. And if you don't like flipping through charts, on page 32, there is the 19th century political study guide divided by the isms, not by, and by the countries, but not by years. So it's however you prefer to study. I like to study chronologically rather than by ideology, but it's however makes your brain happy. Okay? So, essential questions. You need to come up with your own opinion or what you would support. I gave you my opinion on to what extent was the balance of power maintained in Europe between 1815 and 1850. I think it was. I think that to all degrees it was successful, except they underestimated liberalism and nationalism. So you need to be thinking, if you got the FRQ prompt on an exam, like what you would answer and what you would use to support it. Like what areas would you break that into? It says to what extent, so you could say successful to this extent in these areas, unsuccessful in this area, FYI. To what extent did conservatism achieve its objective in the years between 1815 and 1850? We've covered half of that right now. You could break that down in an FRQ by country. You could break that down by the objectives of Metternich, which would be a cool way to break up an FRQ. Legitimacy, balance of power. I mean, that would be an awesome way to frame the essay. And we haven't gotten to the rest of them really, except we've kind of started why was there no revolution in Britain in the period of 1815 to 1848, while many revolutions occurred on the continent. That's that teapot analogy there. The fact that they let the steam off slowly. So those are the FRQs we've covered so far. So if you'd like to write, essential question 1, 2, and 4 are covered in this portion in case you got that part. That might be a good thing to do. And we will pause here. Did we get Angela on the recording? Happy birthday, Angela.
Happy birthday, Angela!
Woo!